Hello and welcome to At the 55, your home for U Sports football. Me and Tom are back with another installment of the exit meeting, returning safely to our sweet safe zone of the OUA to talk a little Waterloo Warriors football. We're going to go over the season that was, what's on the horizon for the Warriors going into next year, and a little bit of special content related to the Waterloo area and just U Sports football and so much more. But first, Tom, how the heck you doing, my friend?
I'm doing so well, my man. At time of recording, we're just coming out of seeing another U Sports team out at a practice, but the two of us got to be together watching some OUA football in February. It was an outstanding time, a great practice, and seeing your beautiful faces always just puts a smile on mine. So I'm doing great, my man. So excited to continue talking about OUA football and U Sports football, but focusing on the OUA in this exit meeting series.
And at time of recording as well, thinking about when the episodes are getting posted. If you didn't get a chance to listen to the interview we did with Chris Rora, Acadia Hall of Famer, current head coach, well, darn near for the last 2 decades of the Birchmount Collegiate Panthers here in Toronto. We did that today as well. Again, from the time recording standpoint, please go check that out. Awesome football story, awesome guy, awesome coach, and again, supporting AUS football as best we can. But Tom, we're gonna start off by talking about the Invitational and CFL Combine, looking at the names that have been extended the invite to these two events, and kind of just highlighting some of the players that are of note from where we stand a few months. I mean, realistically, a few weeks away from it. Before we get into it, just thoughts in general about all this, or do we just jump right into the names?
Yeah, let's just jump right into the names.
All right, beautiful. We're going to not only U Sports, we're going obviously all the players coming from south of the border as well. Let's start with the Invitational Combine. So from the University of Alberta, we have Brian Davies, Matthew Juden, and Oren Schallenberg. From Arkansas Pine Bluff, we have Jackson Isaac. From Bishops, Kyle Chorney and Alex McDonald. From Bluefield State, Cameron Michaud. From Buffalo, Gunnar Gray. From Calgary, Jordan Chisda, Chris Pashula, and Matt Sibley. From Carleton, Frederick Hatchie. From Concordia, Damien Irep and Jean-Sébastien Lemotte, as well as Christopher Liberta. From the Edmonton Huskies Juniors, Daniel Youssef. From Gannon, the evil boss at the end of all the Zelda games, Javon Blake. From Geneva College, Nicholas Ciriello. From Guelph, Jack Cobb, Gianni Green, and Robert Keys Wilson. From Kenyon College, Jordan Benjamin. From Laval, Alexandre Masri Vlis, Billy Jonas Pernier, Olivier Rust, and Angel Vetal. From Louisville, Chandler Jones. From Manitoba, Deshaun Lejour. Also from Manitoba, Caleb Mackey McLeod, Victor Olaniran, and Nicholas Pereira. From McGill, Jeffrey Amicial Chatelier, Ian Barbara, and Felix Olivier Leclerc. From McMaster, Aaron Lavers, Everett Reed, and your boy Tony Stastanovic. From Montreal, Iragi Muganda. Moorhead State, Dylan Schober. From Okanagan's son, Tariq Brown. From Ottawa, Zachary Cloutier. From Presbyterian College, Jason Briones. From Queens, John Korskaden, Stephen Capay, Liam Silverson, and Alex Vrieken. From Regina, Colin McKellar, Anthony Montaz Lippert, and Riley Schick. From St. Mary's, Ryan Butler, Callan Edwards, and Omar Cash. From the Saskatoon Hilltops, Jonathan Stevens. From Sherbrooke, Thomas Desrosiers. From the St. Clair Saints, Thomas Taavili. From the Saint FX, Malcolm Bussey, Zachary Hood, David McGill, and Otito Nwaogu. From Texas, Hamilton McMartin. From Toronto, Scott Barnett and Sebastian Holden. From Towson University, Sahil Bular. From UBC, Chase Henning and Gavin Owen. From Waterloo, Nick Jadero and Mason Henry. From Western, Jude Buchanan, Connor Franzisi, Sam LaRue, and Sandro Perini. From Laurier, Josh Connors, Omari Hastings, Ryan Spate, and Marcus effing Tenney. From the Windsor Lancers, Colby Ginn, Ethan John, Tyreek Quason, Robert Springer Jr., and Liam Talbot. Again, those are your invitational invites for the Invitational Combine. Wow. Sorry. I just got reading through a list of many, many names. Tom, who are the names that jump out here for you?
Uh, there's a number of names in here that I think are a little bit surprising to see on the invitational rather than the big one that's happening out in Edmonton this year. And I think a couple of those Saint FX guys, I think when you and I first saw that, we were a little surprised that obviously Zachary Oud and Malcolm Bussey in particular, I thought those guys had really showcased an outstanding work ethic and a great body of work, which is why they should have gotten that larger camp invite. But again, there's a number of guys that they always invite from this invitational to go to the national combine. So that certainly could be on the docket for them. Nice to see some Canadian quarterbacks, obviously. Barnett and Alex Vreeken have their names in there as well. I think Vreeken has that body type that I think you're looking for in a quarterback. Certainly tall, has the arm strength and everything. It'll just be, does somebody want to take him on and want to fight against the Canadian quarterback stigma? But I certainly think that he's got the measurables to contribute there, which would be nice to see. And then honestly, some of the guys from obviously seeing some of the guys at Laurier, Omari Hastings, and Marcus Tenney in particular, I don't know if guys are looking at them saying, I don't know if you have the size to be in the CFL or not, but certainly at the athleticism and things, I think that they will do very well in this one.
I mean, Tenney's like the strongest man in all of U sports. So even if the size isn't there, you know he's going to put up some significant numbers. Love seeing that linebacking core, 2/3 of that linebacking core from your Marauders getting represented there, and Tony and Aaron Lavers. And I'm going to piggyback on what you brought up about Saint FX, because I think this is just pure AUS bias going in the wrong direction, where when you look at for St. Mary's, I do not buy that neither Callan Edwards or Ryan Butler got the straight up invite to the CFL Combine. That is pure malarkey. One of those two guys better make their way to the Combine by way of the extended invitation. I mean, obviously they got to perform. So at the end of the day, it's on them at this point. But much like you said with those guys at Saint FX, who in their own right, absolutely had outstanding offensive years. We know that St. Mary's defense was darn near as good as anybody else in the nation last year. And it started in large part with those two guys in the DB core. Any other thoughts on this one, or shall we move to the CFL Combine list?
No, this is another list of names. Although, sorry, very last one that I think might have gotten snubbed here that I want to bring some more attention on, but I know he's going to kill it, is Frederick Hatchie. I think Hatchie is a phenomenal receiver. I think he showed a great body of work throughout his entire time at Carleton, especially going into last year as well. I think he's going to have a really good showing here, and he could be one of those guys, especially in those one-on-one sessions. I think he'll really showcase how good he is.
And obviously over the last couple of years, we've seen Kasim Ferdinand make the jump, Tristan Reddy make the jump, and now Frederick Hatchie. So, I mean, if the cupboard really becomes bare, Elijah, maybe get out of there. I don't know. I didn't say that. Let's turn our attention now to the CFL Combine. Again, we'll go through it by school, and apologies for the players I'm less familiar with. If I mispronounce a name, I will do my best to correct that on future podcasts. Starting from Alabama State, Dylan Jetty. From Alberta, Carter Kettle and Carter Stewart. Double Carters out of Alberta. How about that? Angelo State, Eric Rasco. From Arkansas, Frank Mulipola. From Calgary, Benjamin Dobson, Franklin Ibello, Oseri Odemwingi, Braden Seaman, and Brody Burke. From Coastal Carolina, Emeril Notice. From Colorado, Tristan Marois. From Concordia, Loic Gagne. From East Carolina, Darius Bell. From Fordham, Jack Lowe. From Georgia State, Christian Vellieux. From Grambling State, Baron Miles Jr. From Guelph, Larry Eunice, Mitchell Schretchinger, and Isaiah Stewart. From Kennesaw State, Ebenezer Dibula. From Laval, Emerick Boutin. From Louisiana, Trey Tomlinson. From Louisiana Tech, Jonathan Denis. Apologies, don't know which way that pronunciation goes. From Manitoba, Nathan Udo. From McGill, Éloire Latendresse Régimbal, otherwise known as ELR. From McMaster, Ethan Stewart, Frank Vrundenhill. From Mercyhurst, Kyle Lang. Michigan State, Devin Cromwell. Oh, wait a minute. Well, he moved around a little bit after, because he went Guelph to
Texas Tech, and
Texas
then
Tech
to
I didn't
yeah.
know that. My goodness. We will continue. Montreal, Charles Elliott Boulien, Alessandre Diouf, and Louis Philippe Gauthier. From the Munich Ravens. Okay. Chinazo Obobi from North Dakota. Nate DeMontagna from Northern Illinois. Cyrus McGarrell from Ohio. Pierre Kameni from Ottawa. King Charles Asselin, Jackson Brashear, Patrick Cumberbatch, Denny Ferdinand, Josh Jansen, and Mark Rondeau. From the Prague Lions, Arthur Kingdom. From Purdue, Giordano Vaccaro. From Queens, Nicholas Henning and Justin Pace. From Regina, Ethan Graham and Carson Sombach. From Robert Morris University, Nathan Karabatsakis. From St. Mary's, Joshua Jack. From Saskatchewan, Charlie Parks, Jack Warwick. From South Alabama, Darius McKenzie. From South Dakota, Carter Hooper. From Southeastern Louisiana, Shakespeare Lewis. From Southern Mississippi, Jez Janvier. From St. FX, Devin Blackwood and Chidera Oragui. From UBC, Shamar McBean, Benjamin Sangmua, and Riley Sheffer. From Virginia Tech, Wilfred Penne. From Waterloo, Evan Basiliga. From Western, Keegan O'Neill and Jerome Rancourt. From Laurier, Laomi Ojatalayo, Sebastian Parselides, and Spencer Walsh. From Windsor, Harrison Daly and Waby Mambo. And from the York Lions, Brody Clark. Those are your individuals making their way to the CFL Combine with no additional step in between. Again, apologies for no doubt the multiple mispronunciations on my end there. Tom, what stands out to you about this list of names?
Yeah, a number of guys that have made their jumps or attempted to make their jumps down to the U.S. that are coming back for the CFL Combine as well. Obviously, you mentioned Devin Cromwell. He's played down at Texas Tech and now at Michigan State. He's coming up here. And along with Giordano Vaccaro, he was at Manitoba, went down to Purdue, wanted to do his thing there as well. So an interesting side part to look at. If you want that U.S. tape, you wanted to play the U.S. game, so you have that tape for a better chance, whatever, power to you. But ultimately, a lot of you are coming back to the CFL Combine anyway, so you might as well get your reps in with your school, with your country. That's just my little pitch for people to stay at home when they're doing this. But a lot of really great names on this list. Obviously, Justin Pace and Nicholas Henning out of Queens. I think the two of those guys are really going to do well. Happy to see Brody Clark on here as well. Obviously, he was injured in that first game, but the measurables and the talent that he has, I think he's going to be capable to go to the next level. It'll just depend on how healthy he is. Obviously, with that knee injury, I don't know how long it's typically the timeline is before you're ready to full go type deal. So that'll be interesting to see. Same thing with Spencer Walsh coming out of Laurier, obviously dealing with some kind of an injury. So we'll see how well he does. But a number of these guys on this list, really, really excited about and can showcase their stuff. Obviously, a lot of guys from some of the states and a lot of schools from the states, as you were mentioning here. But I think the Canadians who stayed in Canada and played U Sports are really going to show out.
No, I totally agree. And obviously, less familiar with those guys. To me, the name of names that stands out as far as, and I'm sure there's some projected mock drafts out there already. The name that stands out to me that I have to imagine is probably one of, if not just a first round draft, if not the first overall pick, a first round draft pick. A first round draft pick would be Alessandre Diouf out of Montreal. Obviously, we know when you can get that O-line talent pretty early on, especially from the Canadian standpoint, that's pretty big, literally and metaphorically. Obviously, nice seeing Devin Blackwood. I feel less strongly about Zachary Hood being on the Invitational, knowing that Blackwood is making his way up there also from St. FX. And you know what? A comment that I meant to tie in with the Invitational that I'll extend in talking about the CFL invites writ large is just like way to show out to the Windsor Lancers. Obviously, Waby Mambo and Harrison Daly getting the invite to the big show, but I mean, adding in the likes of Colby Ginn, Ethan John, Tariq Quason, Robert Springer Jr., and Liam Talbot to that Invitational, like they are going to be like, obviously it's about the individuals when you come to these types of events rather than the schools themselves. But to me, as far as any individual program, at least out of Ontario, it's Windsor really stealing the show. Ottawa obviously has a really nice showing at the Combine as well. But yeah, great job by Windsor. And man, if they can return a lot of those guys, look out for those Lancers going to 2026. Tom, final thoughts before we dive into the action happening in Waterloo.
Yeah, happy to see. Obviously, with this CFL draft time coming up, it's always an exciting moment. I'm going to do my very best to be at the Invitational Combine out at Waterloo as well, so that I can see everybody doing their thing. Obviously, when we're not making any money with the podcast, flying out to Edmonton to watch that and staying there for a couple of days is a little bit trickier. But at bare minimum, we will be a part of one of the aspects of this. So excited to see everybody out there, and it's just an overall enjoyment of the game of Canadians in the CFL. That's what this combine process is all about. So I'm happy about that. Interested to see what Mitch Schretchinger does as well, and some of the other offensive linemen in there, because obviously we're O linemen first and foremost. But yeah, great list of names at the end of the day, and excited to see what they do.
And of course, the reason we're tying this onto our Waterloo podcast is because that invitational event will be happening at the hangar in Waterloo. So with no further ado, let's talk about the 2025 Waterloo Warriors and our way too early projections for how they're looking going into 2026. As a reminder, this was a Waterloo team that ended with a 2-6 record, picking up wins at Toronto and home against York. But a season that had them, showing competitive stretches in different ball games. They're tight in a ball game against Carleton, and early on, opening their season with Ottawa, were fighting them pretty thoroughly. An Ottawa team that sort of historically starts a little slow on the offensive side of the ball. So a season really that I think we could say they made some positive strides in terms of where they were the year before. We'll go through, as always, who the key players are in that fifth year bracket that might not be making their return back. Some of those fourth and third year guys, thinking about East West and some of those young up and comers, along with everything and anything else. But Tom, you close your eyes, you think about the year that was for this Waterloo team in 2025. What are the thoughts, the images, the sounds, the memories that come to mind when you think about what was in store for Coach Bertoya's Warriors last year?
Well, I mean, you talk about a marked improvement on the year. You talk about a team that was on that positive trajectory from 24 and leading that into 25. 24, they finished 0-8, and you and I both talked about they had this trajectory. They were getting better and better, even if they didn't result in wins. And getting to 2-6 this year is exactly the kind of showcase of that. And even just the mentality, the mental fortitude it takes. Let's not forget that first win that they got against U of T in the second week of the season. They were down. You were in the house for that one. They were down going into halftime. They changed up a game plan. They came out firing on all cylinders. And then Astolfo hits that record-setting field goal to win them the game in overtime, which was incredible. But even just having the mental fortitude to stay in that game. There's so many other teams out there and players that once you get down, and certainly down in a certain setting, being under the lights at U of T, which is such an incredible atmosphere to be in it to begin with, that's a lot of pressure that's there. But to stay in it and to keep going, I think that's a direct kind of testament to this team and getting things going. Same thing with the York win later on in that season, scoring 25 points in the fourth quarter to come back and win that one by a single point. Like, I'm really happy with the trajectory where this team is going. Now, obviously, got to piece some things together, get some more wins, but going from 0-8 to 2-6 and the way they're getting those wins, the way that the season is going, I'm happy with the trajectory that I'm seeing the Warriors on.
Well, and I wish I had in front of me their 24 season. Obviously, as you highlighted, it was 0-8, and we know that season started off with that tough loss at home to U of T, the return of Coach Adams, but it kind of speaks to that piece on, in a couple of those games where, much like we've talked about in looking at the AUS and the RSCQ, where not everyone can vie for that conference championship every year. But if you can understand sort of who's within your bracket, who's within your lane, and take that step from being competitive in a game against Team X to winning a competitive game, like losing a competitive game to winning a competitive game, they showed those market improvements on the year against teams where, again, you throw Carleton in the mix, where another squad that, by end of year, we realized sort of who this team was in many ways. You could say, okay, yeah, that's a team where Waterloo, you should be going to those games. I mean, yes, I get it. You go into every game saying, here's the game plan, here's how it's going to play out that we win, so on and so forth. But from the talking head perspective, which is our job here. You say, these are the games you really need to be competitive in and be able to ideally come out on the winning side of it. Yes, you want to be able to walk out of a Laurier game and say, hey, 41-19, be damned. Here are the things that we did well on both sides, on all fronts of the ball. 58-18 against Queens, be damned. Here are the things that we got better in this game from 35-0 against Windsor, so on and so forth. So you're totally right in recognizing those strides moving forward for them. Now, let's go on to some of the personnel, because it's very interesting, and you've brought up already, the name of Evan Astolfo. And again, you probably said it in there, but just it's worth repeating again. First year guy. So, I mean, the cojones on him, talking about the pressure in that moment to demonstrate that he's already a guy, arguably he's a dude, is massive. But let's start in terms of who we might not be seeing. Who might be moving on to greener pastures in one way or the other, starting with some of the key fifth years, or in the case of at least one of these guys, key sixth-year player. I jotted down only a few names. There was more than this, so my apologies if I didn't write their names down. And Tom, obviously, if there's someone in that age bracket, eligibility bracket that you want to highlight too that I don't speak on, then please do. But to me, the four names that really came up were Anthony Miller, sixth-year running back out of Brampton, I believe. Shout out to the great career that he put together in the black and gold. Keyshawn Bowen, linebacker, also might be a Brampton guy, I think. We'll have to look into that one. Nolan Caban, coming out of Calgary, the gunslinger himself. I was actually a little surprised. I thought him and Nick Orr were kind of, tit for tat in terms of their eligibility. And then Romel Samuel Slocum, wide receiver with them as well, who, again, really serviceable player for them. Tom, I don't know if there was any other players in the fifth-year age bracket in terms of eligibility that you wanted to highlight, but, we always find ourselves in the situation where even if it says fifth year, I just feel like it's never really a done deal till we don't see them in the respective colors anymore. But of those four players, Miller, Bowen, Caban, and Samuel Slocum, what comes to mind thinking about the potential of those players moving on from the program? Obviously, with the exception of Keyshawn Bowen, very much we're talking about hits on the offensive side.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, losing a guy like an Anthony Miller, somebody who is seasoned within that program, is a seasoned runner and has seen a lot of success, that's a big one. I think Keyshawn Bowen quickly turned into that Evan Ansu kind of question mark, or the replacement there. I don't want to say replacement, but the next guy that was that versatile dude within that KMAC defense, where you could drop back into coverage, you could send him on a blitz, you could do a bunch of stuff with him. He didn't really know anywhere that he was coming. And a number of things within there. I think Romel Samuel Slocum as well, having somebody that you could just throw up the ball to. I know that's a lot of the time that's an Evan Basiliga, but him coming over the middle, or him doing the quick routes that we saw from him later on or in this season, I think that'll be another big loss for them as well. But I know we're talking about the guys who are moving on, but we're starting to look at some of the recruits that are coming into Waterloo, and there's a number of guys to certainly have your eyes on. A couple of guys from the London area that are some big names as well. So happy about the recruiting class that's coming in to replace some of these dudes.
Anesu Latmore, that was the.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, maybe let's keep going down the ladder, and then we can talk about some of those recruits that you were highlighting when we get into that sort of first, second-year bracket. I will jump ahead. I mean, we've already talked about Astolfo, but again, you talk about the impact Anthony Miller made in there, and I don't think it's any surprise that we saw such a positive year out of first-year running back Roy Vanderveen in being able to be partnered up with Anthony Miller. I obviously can't speak to Vanderveen's thoughts on, getting someone as seasoned as him, who's seen everything you can see as an OUA football player in terms of different fronts, defenses, this, that, and the third. I don't think it's a surprise that, like, when you have that, like, the old vet and the young wily kid, that, like, we saw some pretty strong production from the youngster in his first year. Now, looking at some of the fourth-year players, obviously we talked about Evan Basiliga as far as being on that invitational list, and to be honest, like, he is a guy that I'd love to see back with them, because I want to keep seeing Bertoya's team keep on that positive trajectory, and with the offense of Coach Conway, what Basiliga does. I mean, Basiliga to me is someone who's only done a few years offensive coordinating, but just in coaching up O-lines and thinking of blocking schemes, is an absolute dream of a player in terms of how he not only opens up your run game, but your pass game as well. And frankly, is a guy that I could see sticking at the CFL level when you have the size and the athleticism that he has. hopefully he comes back for Waterloo's sake, and I'm sure he'll make his way to the league. He just seems to have that build that typically you see go to that stage. But in terms of the key fourth year players, and Tom, as always, if there's someone in that same class I don't mention, please add their name to the list. But we have Nick Orr, Tyler Tierney, Marcus Ola, Marcus Hogel, Evan Basiliga, and the meme god himself, Dominic Walker. I say that because, as a reminder, the kid is 6'7". And I feel like it was only his first year with Waterloo really getting reps. So I'm excited to see what he might be able to get. And I'm sure K-Mac has some fun things designed for him. Again, for any players in that same class, no disrespect at all for not mentioning them, but those were the names that really jumped out to me. Tom, whether it's about those 6 names in specific or about anyone else in that class, what do you think about the fourth years? Obviously, Evan's the only one that, aside from just a player maybe transferring or just graduating, that we would expect to leave. There's a nice group that we could say with some certainty are probably coming back as that core fifth year group of guys. Again, anything could happen. What do you make of those names?
Yeah, another good list of names. Just a good group of names. Yeah, yeah. I think Dominique Walker is actually technically in his third year. He might be a fourth year academic, but I think he's a third year eligibility.
Love it. East West. Let's go.
Yeah, that's a thing to be really thankful for. Honestly, I think of those names on that list, all of them are great, but I think the one that would hurt you the most if they were gone is Evan Basiliga, just because of the big frame, what he did to that offense, the capabilities that he was really showing, being a great blocker, but also being that big, wide, rangy receiver you can just toss a ball up to and trust him that he's going to come down with it. I think that he brings another level to this offense that I really want to see continue on. And I'm hoping that selfishly hoping that he comes back to Waterloo because I love watching him play for the black and gold. But obviously, if he gets drafted and he sticks, he's on the greener pastures with the CFL, and power to him.
And he obviously bailed out a lot of the quarterbacks that ended up playing for Waterloo this year because of that catch radius that you alluded to. You know, as far as that question that I opened up throwing your way, it's as we start all these episodes and like, what's your key memories and the sights, the sounds, the moments. I suppose maybe this is the time that we talk about Nick Orr obviously having that devastating injury, but it was in your connecting with him over message and just checking in, making sure he was all right, where he did seem rather confident that he was coming back, which is just like such a testament to just beyond the jersey and the logo he wears. He is a true warrior in body, spirit, and mind. And just someone who, again, started his career partly why I was a bit surprised to see Caban be listed as fifth year, him in fourth year, because he starts off kind of a bit back and forth with Caban as sort of like who's going to fill the void in the post Trey Ford era. And really, we've seen the growth of him over that time. And I think it was kind of a measure of Caban might have the stronger arm, more again of that gunslinger mentality. Nick Orr, a bit of the athleticism that we started to see from him this year and being able to escape the pocket, and maybe just a little bit more of a taking less risks. So maybe it was a higher floor for Orr, higher ceiling for Caban. But again, if nothing else, just the fact that he expressed to you, and neither of us, I don't think so, have been to a Waterloo camp yet. Just seeing him back in the black and gold would just be such an amazing thing of just, again, a testament to who he is as a young man.
Yeah, an unbelievable young man. Even before the injury really had that out, just talking to him, how positive the dude is and the gamer that he is, you could tell that the guys just absolutely love playing with him. And Coach Burt and Conway, talking to them about what he means to the program. It's just can't put it into words type of thing. But yeah, I saw him at the last game of the regular season. They played against McMaster, and he's in the neck brace and everything, but like he's rallying the team. He's doing everything else. He's still completely in it. And when I spoke to him, he's like, oh yeah, like if I'm cleared to play, like I'm playing. And then I can't remember if I even told you this, but in early January, there was a Football Ontario ID camp that was happening where it's a lot of the U16s, the U18s are out there. And I wanted to go out there, I wanted to see some guys and whatever else. That camp finishes up. And as I'm leaving the dome at Waterloo, I turn around and it's Nick Orr. and he's got footballs in his hands, and he's saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go throw with some of the receivers over here." And I'm like, "Are you?" He's like, "I'm cleared to throw, so I'm going to keep training and keep
Let's
going until
go.
somebody tells me otherwise." I don't know for sure if he's cleared for tackle football again, but he is training and preparing as if he's going to be the starter come day one for Waterloo. And if that is the case, if he is safe, first and foremost, he's got a great future ahead of him and everything else, and he is cleared. Oh my God, there will not be a single person across all of U Sports that I will be cheering for harder than Nick Orr.
Now that Ethan Jordan has moved on from U Sports football, the number four, give me more. What's his name? The man's Nick Orr. That's the line now for this kid, whether he's playing football or otherwise. Shout out to you, Nick Orr. Hoping to see you on the field again. But again, as Tom said as well, predicated on the fact that it's safe and the responsible thing for him to be doing, and that decision is his and his alone. Now, Tom, obviously, I might have mixed up the Dominic Walker thing, so you might have to help me out in terms of the East-West third-year guys, because to me, I got one name and one name only, and frankly, it's the name that you got to talk about when it comes to this era of Waterloo Warriors football. It is Michael Omaseni. I mean, he hails from your part of the province. You know, talk about what this guy's done. I mean, starting with that, probably how many guys, for to say nothing else, how many guys, let alone linebackers, can claim to have intercepted Taylor Elgersma twice in a game at any level of football? Beyond all the incredible things, racking up, I think it was something like 50 tackles last year. Guy flies around the field. It's like single-handedly to me, beyond Evan Astolfo hitting the game-winning field goal, won that U of T game because it allowed K-Mac to say, all right, you want to do your spread offense, nonsense? Great. I got Omaseni right here in the middle. I don't need anyone else to be able to slow down whatever, Scott Barnett draw run game you're going to try throwing at me. I mean, talk about your boy Omaseni here.
Yeah, not only from the same area that I'm from, went to my same high school.
I
He's an
thought so, yeah.
Assumption boy. Yeah, hell yeah. I love me some Michael Omaseni. And I want to talk about, yeah, you were right. He finished the regular season with 50 tackles and 1 sack, along with a tackle for loss. Man, maybe he doesn't have the flashiest, whatever. Maybe he needed more in other categories. The fact that this man is not a second team, at least all Canadian, is crazy to me. What he meant to that Waterloo defense, exactly like you said, in that game, the second half of that game, K-Mac literally goes, okay, I'm going to play a 3-1. I'm going to have 3 down linemen and just Omaseni in the middle. Dare you to run on me. And even when they try to, we were still limiting them for like 4 or 5 yards because Omaseni's a monster and just fighting through old linemen to make tackles. That guy is an incredible athlete. I think he's going to make great things happen at his East-West appearance, put his name on the map in front of CFL scouts, and he's going to have a hell of a CFL career if he wants to. But that is a phenomenal young man who should have at least had a second-team All-Canadian.
Yeah, 8.5 tackles, a TFL, and a breakup coming out of that U of T game. And honestly, that feels like that doesn't do justice to what he did in that game. Michael Omaseni he's not only a dude, he's not only a guy, he's the man. Now, talking about some of the young talent on this team, we've mentioned a few of these names, and I know you had some of the incoming players in terms of the recruits coming in. And so I just want to go through a couple of the names that had stuck out to me. I mean, for one, like we've already mentioned about Roy Vanderveen, and so excited to see how he progresses. We've talking about Astolfo. Waterloo, this would be a fun project for us to go through. I think better than any other program recruits families of players, because there is now, I must have missed this last year, there is another Basiliga from Thunder Bay. I wonder who he might be related to. Wide receiver Lance Basiliga playing for them, and obviously we know what his brothers have done for that program, so no doubt when his time comes that he's going to have similar exploits as his 2 older brothers had. I think it's 2, for all I know it might be 3 at this point. Who's keeping score? You were very bullish. Obviously, we talked about Nick Orr, the injury. Caban stepped in a lot, but you saw them try to get a glimpse into the future with Emmett Ward, who you were quite bullish on in terms of like the sort of pomp and circumstance with him coming in, first-year quarterback out of North Vancouver. I loved seeing Salvatore Follini on the roster for them. Toronto kid, more north of the city, former Vaughan Rebel, second going into third-year quarterback. So again, I mean, it's we'll see what the situation is with quarterback, but a couple good young quarterbacks there. I didn't realize Logan Haru was a first year for them last year. Again, rotational guy in Coach Conway's offense, but really impressive in terms of what he was doing. And then the last name I highlighted, both selfishly because I got to work with this kid, but also as objectively as I can name it because he is an absolute baller, is Chase Smith, defensive back. And if he can become something akin to the player he was at the high school level in terms of just the roles he played, can be an absolute weapon for them returning kicks. And then as you can imagine, when he gets a ball in his hand, picking it off, which he's one to do. He's pretty lethal there coming out of the London South program in the West and the London Junior Mustangs. Those are the first second years I highlighted. I know you have a bunch of the recruits coming in the program, and you'd sort of highlight a bunch of them. But in terms of that, like real youth of the program, which again I think they're in a solid position from that regard. Who stands out to you? What feelings and thoughts did you have in that regard?
Well, first and foremost, I got to shout out my guy, a guy that I had a chance to coach, Josiah Aqua. He was a defensive lineman, a first-year guy for them. Got some rotation in there, made some plays. I think he's going to be a great asset. 6'4", 360, and
Let's
moves
go.
pretty damn well. So I think he's going to be a stud for them. I have to shout out my guy. But yeah, a number of guys on there. I think the guy that I'm most excited about is Roy Vanderveen with how well he was running the downhill runners. You had a guy like an Anthony Miller who could make a guy miss and go out and through. And even with a guy like a Quentin Springer, obviously a couple of years ago, he still had that same kind of shiftiness. But having a strong runner who can grab the ball, put his head down, and get you a guaranteed 3, 4, 5 yards, that is so incredibly useful to have and just makes your second down so much easier if he's able to consistently kind of give you that. I know from a young guy standpoint, there's a few guys in there, but the group that I'm probably the most excited about that could return a lot of guys and be in one of the most senior groups is that defensive line. Marcus Ola, Dominique Walker. I mean, you look at some of the dudes out there that these guys were doing some great stuff or great things in all of these games. They were getting into the backfield. They were disrupting the run. They were doing a lot of things to make things tough for offenses. And there's a reason why Michael Omaseni finishes with 50 tackles on the years because he's, for the most part, kept pretty clean. Now, when an offensive lineman does come at him, he's got the power and the ability to get off, but it helps when you've got some monsters in front of you helping that out as well. So I like this defensive line a lot. I think that they're going to do some good things here. And I think that with another year under their belt, with another year of training, more weights, more works, more everything, I think they're going to be even better than they were last year.
No, I think that's a really good read on it. And of course, like we've talked about Coach Conway, in terms of the pieces he has on offense. And we've mentioned Coach K-Mac's name, but like Coach K-Mac is one of the most ferocious defensive coordinators in the OUA, probably across U Sports. So again, it's both the Jimmies and Joes and it's the X's and O's, and that he's going to be able to make the most out of the players that he has there. And again, as we're going through it, there's a lot there for him to work with. I realized just taking another peek at the roster, want to give a few more shout outs. One to Isaac White, another London South product who went from quarterback to receiver, I think he might have taken maybe it was a trick play pass for them. Third-year player, again, one of those interesting things where we see an athletic player who can also get under center and the options that opens up. We were talking about that with some of the other teams. Also realize another nice player in that third-year bracket in Yinka Oganote, third-year receiver. Just again, some of the talent there. Are all these guys necessarily OUA All-Stars? No, but is it the amount of talent that could have you in a position to be as we start to think about as we do these podcasts, where Waterloo slots in our rankings as far as, they go from a team that the last 2 years we're saying nothing to lose or prove us wrong type deal to I'm kind of doing this off the cuff, but they might be in a situation where it's hey, look, take that 7th seed. Go or whatever go get blown out in the first round of a playoff game. I guess it wasn't that long ago that they did make the playoffs, and then, Laurier did some awful stuff to them as well. But it's hey, look, this is trajecting to where you're at right now. Also, last thing I'll say here, Keyshawn Bowen from Calgary. So my apologies to the fine folks of Cowtown. But shout out to Brampton again, nonetheless. Tom, hey, we got so much love for Waterloo. We always do. not just the team, what Coach Burt does and his players, but the football community writ large and what they did. You brought to my attention that Coach Bertoya re-signed there for whatever that extension was. We love to see that. He's done nothing but excellent things for that program, and no doubt all coaches of youth sports with the show he and his staff put on and the support team, shout out to Marianne Vaughn, obviously, do when they bring the youth sports world into Waterloo for things like combines and so on and so forth, East-West. He's as good as it gets from that regard. He's a great recruiter. He's just the passion he has for the game of football and helping these young athletes become very good young men is second to none. We love Waterloo, and with the players they have here and the guys they have calling the shots, I think this is an exciting program. Are they in that upper echelon? No, they're not there yet, but there's really good signs of life and things to come. What are your final thoughts about the spot that the Waterloo Warriors find themselves in?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, can't be overstated how much respect that I have for Coach Batoya. I mean, he was the main reason I was so seriously considering Western back in the day was because he was the offensive line coach there. And I think, if nothing else, even if his tenure at Waterloo hasn't garnered enough championships or playoff runs or whatever else, the type of human being that he is, he attracts the right kind of people and they're doing things the right way. So I'm really excited for how this Waterloo team is going, especially since, and I know it's been a number of years, but still since the end of the Trey Ford era, and getting back into that playoff push and getting that going there. So love the fact that he's going to be back with the black and gold once again and hosting for a number of years now, probably my single favorite football event in the East-West Bowl, because it is such a celebration, in my opinion, of football. You have guys in their third year who have aspirations of playing in the CFL, who come in, showcase their stuff to CFL scouts that are there, but also just are there to get better. You talk to these guys and they're soaking in so much knowledge and energy from all of the coaches that are there and just from being around the atmosphere. And the guys at Waterloo have done a phenomenal job of that year after year. And I'm so happy that they're doing it again going into this year as well. If there's anybody who's in any kind of position to donate some money, throw some dollars their way, because hosting all of those athletes and getting them up, that is not cheap. So that would be incredible. But shout out to those guys, the coaching staff there between Conway and K-Mac and everybody else. I mean, Marianne Vaughn, there's just phenomenal people over there first and foremost. But now getting into the actual football team on what we see on the field. 2-6, already talked about, a great jump from where we saw them previously. Obviously having a carousel of quarterbacks because of the injury that happens and the young guy that's there with the old vet, throw a guy in like Emmett Ward. There's a lot of there's some science behind throwing them into the fire and getting him used to things so that in his second, third, and fourth year, he's used to the bullets and he can get a little bit better. And there's also a little bit of, why don't you learn behind the vet and Nolan Caban, see what he does, see what you should do and everything else, and get that out there. So excited to see where Ward's career goes from that standpoint as well. But continuously, you win a game in overtime against Toronto and you come back, score 25 points in the fourth quarter to beat the York Lions 34-33. There's a tight game with Carleton that I think they could have won if they'd gotten a little bit more going there. And even when you're looking at, in that Carleton game, it's going into the fourth quarter, it's 14-12. And they're right then, for the Ottawa game, that's 14-12 in the very first game. And if they just can get over the hump in that fourth quarter, they're right in there. So I think there's a lot of things to be excited about for Waterloo fans that are out there, with the solid recruits that are coming in, with guys that are young coming back and getting another year under their belt, and a K-Mac defense in particular, like a Michael Omaseni and Marcus Miller, Marcus Ola, and with Dominique Walker, to say a few. I think that there's a lot of things to be really excited about. And if you couldn't tell, I'm one of those people that is very excited about the Waterloo Warriors.
We love ourselves some Waterloo football. Tom, great job by you, as always, to no surprise. Again, if you didn't get a chance to listen to the interview we did with Chris Rora that came out earlier in this week, please go check that out. An awesome life in football and a football life that is continuing to proceed, to my chagrin, as someone else who teaches and coaches in TDSB football, and I'm 0-2 against, but that is beside the point. Next week, when we discuss an exit meeting interview, we will be, we might still be in the OUA, but we might be heading back to La Belle Provence. Who it'll be, we'll have to tune in next week right here at the 55.